Yeah, well, it's funny. A lot of people come to us and say, 500 kilo horse, 60k an hour, you're mad. What are you doing? But I think it's they grow on you. They're like big kids, and you tend to gel with them. And if you try and fight them, they're going to win every time. So you can't use your strength against theirs because you're not going to win. So,
welcome to Season 2 of Voices of Value, a conversation between Peter Kakos and Rick Rushton, and their high-achieving guests from professional sport, Olympians, business leaders, and ordinary people with value hacks to share through simple life lessons. If you're keen to reach your next level personally and professionally, sit back and join the conversation with your hosts, Rick and Peter.
And welcome to Voices of Value. Peter Kakos here, my good friend Ricky Rushton. Rick, this is episode number
50. Raise the bat, or in this instance, acknowledge the judge, because we are on Derby Day in the middle of the Cup campaign, and we've got racing royalty with us, Pete. But we should acknowledge our subscribers. Thank you for being a part of this journey. 50 episodes. Started August last year, didn't it? I think it's just continued to...
They said we'd never make it.
Yeah, and they were probably right. In what area? No, they said we wouldn't make it and wouldn't last. I don't know who they are, though. We need to find out who they are.
Yeah, we need to definitely need to find
out who they are and take names and then kick some ass with
exactly. So we wanted to do something special for Derby Day Cup campaign, and thought we'd go straight to the director of the Australian Jockey Association.
Yeah, there we
he
go.
Wasn't available,
And just so that we all know what's going on here, the silks the blue and white silks, these are owned by my wife, ready to go for our racing progeny that we bred, Mystic Journey. This is in honour of the Wishaw family from Armidale Stud, who are massive, passionate supporters of our particular show, and who have the mighty Needs Further, a stallion that's produced Mystic Journey, his number one progeny, until Try Further comes along, registered racing name, get all over it, Baster. So racing is the theme, and we've got racing royalty with us.
Those listeners are probably wondering, well, we can't see it, so what are you talking about? And that's because, Rick,
we're on YouTube.
We are on YouTube. So if you haven't got into YouTube, look at the Voices of Value podcast there, which is we're now there on live in the flesh.
I think the first one was...
And you get to see this magnificent blue. It is a North Melbourne blue as well, isn't it?
I thought you'd like it. And Try Further is the name because our horse was one of triplets, which is quite rare in the equine world. So I think the stud's been going for 40 plus years, and they only know of two other... No, this was the second other time, and I think the resident vet's seen it once in 30 years. So Try Further... Get all over him. But we'll talk about that later.
But let's talk about today, because we do, as you said, it's racing royalty that we do have. And we've got Stephen Baster with us now, and some of you may know him from Australian Ninja Warrior. But we'll talk about that later. But he is the director of Australian Jockeys Association. Stephen has been a jockey since 1991. You were 7, were you?
6.
6, okay.
Or the height of a 7-year-old.
You're actually 15, I believe.
Yes.
And now we sit among a guy who has ridden in over 13,500 rides.
14
right?
Group 1s, which is the absolute pinnacle of that industry.
Including a Oaks win last year with Gay Waterhouse. Good. So we want to hear all about that. And but like 1,360 odd wins is what I see here. So about 10% of your rides have been winners. That's extraordinary, especially when you have got such a great amount of rides throughout your career. But also the fact that you've also ridden in how many Melbourne Cups now?
Sorry, I'm just working out that I've ridden about 12,000 losers.
So we're all about positive here,
That's
Stevie.
Right, yeah.
So it's
and that's latitude to learn. So you've learnt 12,000 times how to be a winner 1,300 times. So that's good.
Yes,
exactly. So but how many Melbourne Cups now?
I've ridden in about 9, I believe. And I'm trying to get my 10th, but I'm struggling at the moment. But hopefully before tomorrow afternoon, and hopefully I can pick something up.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome to Voices of Value, Stephen Baster.
There we go.
Thanks,
and round
thanks,
of applause.
guys.
That's our studio audience just over there, Steve. Just imagine that they're there, and I'll give them the acknowledgement. But
I didn't get the memo for the outfit.
Doesn't matter. You could have worn anything, but you're with us now before you have some obligations at the Carbine Club, so we're going to delve right on into it. We are absolutely fascinated in this particular podcast, dealing with people who are world class and elite at what they do, and digging into their organising principles. How do they set themselves up for success? And I know that, whenever I speak to anyone, whether it's Des O'Keefe, whether it's Maddie Highland, whether it's anybody involved in the Victorian Jockey or National Jockeys Association, whether it be our good friend Craig Williams, who was a guest on episode 9 and 10 maybe, or 8 and 9, I can't remember, they all say the exact same thing about you. You are incredibly well liked within the jockey ranks, which isn't something that happens too easily in any industry, let alone the competitive world of jockeys. And when I ask people what is it about you, they all come back with the same word, that you are absolutely thinking about everyone else before yourself, which I think is an interesting concept. So take us through your sort of career as a jockey, and what you think has attributed most to your success going forward.
Thank you for the kind words from everybody that you've spoken to. I first left school after year 10 just for the school holidays to go, and I was so small everybody said I should go and be a jockey, and I hadn't touched a horse. So after year 10 I went to the stables in Brisbane and started with a guy called Roy Dawson, and I lasted a month there and hated it, and then went to another guy, and then I was lucky enough to come across a guy called Lindsay Hatch, who was foreman for a trainer down in between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and they took me to Pony Club and looked after me and just found a nice family to live with, basically. And all of a sudden I loved it and never looked back. And then luckily they put me onto some other people in Melbourne, Mark Riley, and it was another guy, Steve Brown, that got me to come down here. And I was just basically lucky that I ran into the right people at the right time, and I was enjoying it.
And you absolutely come with, to this interview today with, an amazing CV, as Pete read out there in the introduction. So at what stage did you think, maybe I could actually make a real good go at this? Like, obviously it was something you were sort of, you didn't go looking for it. It kind of found you by the sounds of it. At what stage did you realise, I might be okay at this and maybe I can make an absolute go at this?
Yeah, it's funny because I was probably really late in maturing in that way, because I rode a couple of Group 1 winners when I was an apprentice, which is extremely rare, and I look back now and I probably didn't have the skill set. I was it's a bit embarrassing when I look back and watch the videos now, but luckily enough the people that were around me gave me the opportunities, and look, I probably didn't deserve them at the time, and it probably wasn't until I was 24, 25 that I got serious about it and decided, well, I'm having a bit of luck here, I must be going okay at it, I'm not the worst at it. So it's something that I've enjoyed, and I do it quite easy. I've always been quite dedicated with my fitness and found something that would complement my job. So I started off doing taekwondo for about 10 years, then I did running, then I did triathlon, and now I do cycling. As my body's got older, I've had to do lower impact sports, but it obviously has helped me keep my weight down. That obviously keeps me mentally tougher as well. So it's I've just found things like that have complemented my job.
So, Stevie, you're 44 now. The average age of a jockey is around 32. What is it? Is it this fitness that's enabled you to go on? Is it what would you put it down to? Because it's a fair bit above that average sort of age, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the average age sort of comes down to 32 that people retire, because so many people get to 18, 19, 20 and their weight gets the better of them, so they're out of it quite quick. But then we've got injuries, which, touch wood, I've been quite lucky with injuries, and my body's stayed well. And yes, the fitness works obviously helped me.
Yeah. And we often talk about this on this show when we speak to people in challenging industries. I don't know too many more challenging industries, Pete, than being a jockey. There's not too many workplaces where you're followed around in practice, in training, and in race day with an ambulance and paramedics on call, ready to go.
So let's put things into perspective. A horse weighs 500 kilos?
On average, yeah.
Yep. The speed of about 60k an hour?
Yep.
And your weight is?
About 52, 53.
About 52. That's pretty scary.
Yep. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be on the wrong end of those numbers, do you?
So to control these horses, talk to us about your affection. Actually, let's go back a bit. Talk about your affection for horses. When we interviewed Willow, you could just see he loves. They're just he just loves horses.
Yep.
Cares so much for them, and I see that in our conversations that we've had, Stevie, over the past few weeks. I see the same thing with you as well. I'm assuming it's the same with jockeys, but talk about your affiliation just with that beautiful animal.
Yeah, well, it's funny. A lot of people come to us and say, 500 kilo horse, 60k an hour, you're mad. What are you doing? But But I think it's they grow on you. You know, they're like big kids, and you tend to gel with them. And I mean, if you try and fight them, they're going to win every time. So you can't use your strength against theirs because it's not going to win. So you're not going to win. So you tend to gel with them and go with them, and they're big, kind animals. You know, they're big, kind animals, and you know they've got them fit and healthy and well, and you know they can sense where you're at with them. And I love them. So it's always been something that if I find the right horse and you gel with it, it's a great feeling.
And you hear a lot of commentators say this horse seems to run for this jockey. Talk us through that. Is that relationship that you're talking about? They may be a horse that's ridden in track work by the same jockey, so there's a bit of familiarity there, but potentially. Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's confidence. I think it's confidence. So if you've had a fair bit to do with the horse, you know it inside and out, you know it well, you become really confident with that horse. Whereas the Group 1 winners I rode when I was an apprentice, that horse ran for me. My boss put me on it because now that I look back, it probably didn't think I was on its back because
it was taking you for the ride.
I wasn't doing much, but that obviously worked for that horse. So different people do suit different horses.
And talking about you as an individual, everyone who I talk to about you just says you've always got a smile on your face. Must be tough for you to go to funerals because you always seemingly are smiling when you're being interviewed by everybody. You know, Jason Richardson just loves you. He just says it's really easy to interview, Stevie Baster because he's just always so upbeat, so energised. Do you put that down to, is that a natural personality trait of yours, or is that a benefit of your training, which you are really passionate about, as you say, from running triathlons to, sort of obviously the bike riding in Spain, and we'll get to that in a minute. But do you put it down to your fitness regime, or is it just part of your character and your makeup?
I think it's part of me because I feel lucky. I think I've had a really good life. Everything's been fantastic, and you look at a lot of people that are a lot worse off than you, and I just love life. I guess I think my job's taken me places that I've really enjoyed, and I think I've been really lucky to be with the people that I've been with and worked with the animals, and it's I'm obviously in my twilight now. We're not far off from hanging up the boots, but I've just been really lucky in life. So I think once I leave this sport, I'll be just as happy. And I'm smiling because I'm happy.
And it must be incredibly challenging. I'd love to sort of get a bit of an insight into communications expert over here, Ricky Rushton. The communication that would need to take place with a trainer and a jockey and an owner and a jockey. Let's call it communication / abuse. But it is. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Just some of the stuff that's been sort of bandied around. Apparently, it was all the jockey's fault or whatever it may be. Which maybe at times it is. But you do cop a bit, don't you? If the horse doesn't sort of get up. But how do you sort of manage that? And how's the communication? How's the relationships with and the personalities go with particular trainers and owners and all that sort of stuff? How do you deal with that?
Well, basically, I've winged it, haven't I? So if I had known Rick a few years ago, it might have helped. But obviously there's a lot of heat in the moment, so I try not to get into too big a debate on the day if I can, if there's an issue, because obviously everybody wants to win. But as you know, we win 1 in 10 at best, 1 in 6 if you're flying. But people invest a lot in racing, and they get very passionate about it, and sometimes you can watch a video and think, why did this happen? But you've got to explain to them, that you're the person that's riding the horse. The horse has got a mind of its own. It hasn't got a motor. It's not a motorbike. You can't. If it wants to do something, unfortunately, you don't have a lot of say. So there is things that go wrong. There's another 15 little buggers like me trying to stuff up my race as well. So things don't always go your way. But look, I was just about to say I haven't had many blues, but I probably have. But
I'm tipping if you've ridden for Gay Waterhouse, you would not be slight in coming forward with some feedback if you've got it wrong.
I can tell you how things work there. Yes, Gay. Sorry, Gay. Yes, Gay.
See, I'm married to Gay, same spelling, G-A-I, not Gay Waterhouse. And I do the same thing. Yes, Gay. Okay, Gay. Okay, you just accept it and move on. But so is it a case, as Pete's saying, that so you've experienced something, they've seen it from the stands. talk us through what happened there. There was a gap. Why didn't you go there? Well, you might have seen the gap, but I had a horse that was already out on its legs and had nothing to take me into that gap. So I've had to, adjust accordingly. Do you go into that depth, or do you just go, I hear what you're saying. There's a reason for it. If you want it now, I'll give it to you now. But most trainers tend to sort of have that chat before, because we've been owners where we see the trainer talk to the jockey, and then it's almost been a debrief there. And it's almost like, well, you better be careful what you say over here, because there's some pretty full-on personalities in this ownership group who are always talking through their wallet, typically. It's like, we saw a gap there. Why didn't you take it? It's like, well, because, bang. Is it that sort of situation for you?
Yeah, it is. I've got it wrong a few times as well. Obviously, put my foot in it and said the wrong thing on the odd occasion. But I try and come back in and give them a rundown of the whole race. So how it began, if something upset the horse and got it over racing, or whether we got back a pair too far, or when the split came, I was on empty, I couldn't go, or I thought the track was better off the fence, so I wanted to get to the outside. That's why I didn't take that run to the inside. A lot of owners don't actually know that by the time they get back, because they've only watched it once, so they haven't had a chance. So it's normally feedback after the race. I come back in and give them my thoughts, and then they'll go back and watch the replay and go, that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. But there's some owners that you go, there was no run there for me. I drew barrier 1. You wanted me to box seated. I couldn't get out. They'll go, what were you doing? You're never riding this thing again. Piss off. We're going to put another jockey on it. Even though they can watch the video and go, there's nowhere for him to go.
And that happens to you a fair bit, doesn't it? Like, I've seen you in an early preparation with a horse get it to a point where it's now challenging for something, and it looks like it could be a stakes race, could be a black type race, could be a group, and they go, okay, thanks, Stevie, you've been great, but now we're going to give it to Damien Oliver, or now we're going to give it to... How do you deal with that, where you've done the heavy lifting, so to speak, maybe got up at 3:30 a.m. to get to track work, wherever it is, and then you've been replaced when it's got to maybe a more of a showcase type event, and you've been sort of tipped aside, and we're seeing it happen right now with Linda Meach. We're seeing it happen right now with a lot of jockeys. How do you deal with that when you've done the heavy lifting and then you get shunted for a higher profile Jose Marrero type sort of scenario? Yeah,
well, unfortunately, it is it happens in racing every week. Every week I would have been taken off thousands of horses in my career. It's just part of it, and there's a bit of a merry-go-round. I've probably learnt in the last, probably for a while now, I just smile and say thank you for the opportunity. And because what will happen, that jockey that rides it might not have any luck, and that way you'll be back on it again next start, or they might have a bit of luck on it, but then they've got to ride in the next race that they've got 2 horses that they could ride. So, look, you don't want to burn bridges, and I understand that, they pay the bills and it's their horse. If they don't want you on, it's bad luck. But, it can be hurtful if you've done 6 months' work on it and you make one mistake and then see you later.
It doesn't even have to be a mistake, does it? They just kind of go, like, I think of Luke Nolan. Like, he's right, and then to be told, sorry, we're going to give it to Glenn Boss, who's now suspended. Or we might get Jose. What have I done? Like, he didn't do anything wrong. In fact, the run he did in I think it was the Turnbull, or it might have been the Caulfield Cup. Yeah. Didn't do anything. I couldn't get out. It's not his fault. But that's the challenge, isn't it, for you? There's so many experts that have never been on the back of a horse.
But it's so many similarities with business, isn't it? It's how you deal with adversity.
Yep.
How you deal with that sort of disappointment. That's what everyone faces on a day-to-day basis, especially in a real estate industry, as well, where, you're in there, you do everything you can. It's like, no, I've got to go with the other agent. It's like, you're kidding me? But we've got to know each other.
I've been sending you birthday cards for 20 years.
What about that Christmas card last year? Did that not mean anything? But that is a harsh reality, isn't it? It's interesting. Horse racing is a sport, yeah. But you are well and truly in the service industry, aren't you? Well and truly in the service industry. You are serving the trainers, particularly the owners. It's quite amazing that more than any other sport. Whereas the feedback is instant and it's brutal. After 90 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever it may be, it's Yeah, you've got to be relatively thick-skinned, do you? Or?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I guess if you want to compare it to real estate, I guess it's coming in on a horse that wasn't good enough on the day, couldn't win, is probably similar to telling someone their place is worth $2 million, but then the market comes along and tells you it's only worth 1.5. You know, it's not an easy conversation.
There it is. But I think the other thing is most real estate agents haven't been fasting for a week. They're not trying to get down to a certain weight, and I'm being really serious about this because the welfare and emotional well-being, and we've had Wayne Schwass on this program, we've had Nick Brax on this program. I am staggered that people just want to tee off on jockeys when these are people that are getting up at some ungodly hour. They're probably fasting. They're in the gym. They're sweating. They're trying to lose weight. They're not hydrated properly. They sometimes ride lightheaded, and they're trying to control, as we talked about earlier, a half-ton animal. And then they give the very best they've got, come in through no fault of their own, hasn't got the result, and then people just tee off on them. If not in the owner's circle, on social media, they just go vitriolic. And someone, you cost me my $10 quaddie. I was like, really, mate? Seriously? Yeah. You probably could have put that $10 into a health regime as opposed to, like that's the point though, isn't it? Like you're dealing sometimes, and you're emotionally challenged with your not so much. You tend to go okay in the weight area, but there's a lot of jockeys that are doing it tough.
Yeah, I think that's a massive part of our game that's probably underestimated. I've ridden till now, till I'm 44, and look, if I had weight troubles like some of these guys, Jamie Motts of the world, and some of the bigger guys, Jordan Childs, who's wasting really hard now to ride in the Melbourne Cup.
Dylan Dunn's just come back after showing a lot of promise, thinking he was just going to get too big and couldn't control his weight, and he's doing everything he can to get back into that echelon, isn't he? Yeah.
See, people don't understand if anybody's ever done the 40-hour famine, it's just these guys are not eating for a long time, and then also getting in the car with sweat gear on and losing weight on the way to the races, and it gets you awfully grumpy, and it plays with your brain. So some of them boys do an amazing job.
So how do you deal with the social media?
Boys and girls, I should say, because there's quite a few girls out as well now.
How do you deal with the social media sort of feedback that is so prevalent now with keyboard warriors?
I'm quite.
You've got to watch this on YouTube. If you're not watching this on YouTube, all you're seeing, even through tough, challenging situations,
unflappable.
I don't find that too harmful because most of the people that are doing that are hiding behind somebody, or you get the odd occasion. I did have one person a few years ago send a message to my wife abusing, which was going too far.
Yep.
But the social media stuff, it's water off a duck's back to me. I don't worry about that. I might even poke them every now and then, like their comment or something, just to really get them going.
So you talk about sort of moods and so forth. So you're married to the beautiful Melissa, who was a jockey, as well. So she understands the sort of potential mood swing or the supporting nature that's needed. I'd imagine there'd be incredible support that's needed to do what you do.
I get home and we've got 2 young kids, and no matter how fried I am, I can promise you she's worse than me by the time I get home. So I can walk in the door and instantly know how I'm going. But look, she is. She's ridden and put up with all the things that I've put up with. So she's across it. So we're a good tight family.
Yeah, I love it.
And you're representing the jockeys in the industry body, helping them in terms of getting better conditions potentially. Where do you see the challenges for jockeys moving forward, other than the obvious, which is as a human race we're getting bigger and we're obviously developing. Our children's generation tend to be bigger, and we've got challenges right across the world with sort of weight issues from the lifestyle choices we make. Where do you see the biggest challenges, and what do you hope is your legacy in your role representing the jockeys in a national position to make things safer, better, and obviously I guess improve for the whole industry?
I think firstly the jockey size, I can't see that changing much than what it already is, due to the horses not getting bigger. So they can only carry so much weight, and it becomes an issue for them sound wise, whether they're going to break down on that. So you can't have too much weight on their back. So I think the way the weight scale is now, there's not too much room for movement. It could go up maybe a little bit, but there's not too much room for movement. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot more girls coming to the sport now. They tend to be a little bit lighter than the guys, but not necessarily, but they are a little bit smaller. So there's more girls coming into the sport, and they're doing a great job. And the guys that if you're above, I'm only 5'4.5", that half's important. The guys that are, there's guys riding that are 6 foot. It's, I don't know how they do it.
Stevie Arnold.
Yeah, I think it's a bit crazy. I feel for them, but I mean, if you're a jockey, you're a jockey. You should be small. Obviously, being on the Jocks Association, I've got to be supportive of everybody. And if they choose to do it, good on them. But it's tough, But I can't see the weight scale going up too much higher than what it is at the moment.
And what's your main legacy that you want to leave behind with your time on this particular sort of industry body where you're trying to improve things for everybody, but specifically from a jockey bent?
Yeah, well, we pretty much everything's involved with the jockey's life we're involved in now. And I think over the last 10 years with Des O'Keefe and now Matty Hyland, I think things have improved sharply. Our conditions, our wages, our safety, especially in Victoria. I think Racing Victoria have done an amazing job of helping the jockeys here. We've got just everything looked after when we go to the races now. We've got plastic running rails at pretty much every course. We've got top medical care. We've got top care away from racing if we need help with anything. We've got it really good now. So I think the way things are going, as long as they don't go backwards, I think it's quite a good job if you're the right size.
And the National Jockeys Trust, which you're obviously a passionate supporter of as well, which raises funds to look after families of jockeys that have paid the ultimate price for their pursuit of their passion in the sport. That's in a healthy state now and getting bigger recognition right throughout the industry. Yeah,
it's one thing that makes me feel a little bit sad because the National Jockeys Trust does an amazing job, but in my 28 years of riding, I've obviously seen a number of people lose their lives, and quite a number more have been injured and got quite catastrophic injuries that they struggle now, and they've got to live with pain. And the National Jockeys Trust helps them out, and it is a dangerous job, and that's one of the downfalls. But the good thing is the National Jockeys Trust is there to support them and help them and their families.
That's true. You're doing an amazing job. It's so good to hear the depth of that people are going to make sure that these people are supported and so forth.
And that's a selfless effort because you don't get paid for any of that. You're obviously fronting up to do the best for your fellow jockeys right across the country and things of that nature.
And we're about to go embark on the spring season, or we are in the spring racing, which gives enormous amounts of people great amounts of happiness.
Bloody oath!
Whether it be just going there to socialise,
social functions,
do whatever. I must admit, I've been one who's been a few Melbourne Cups and not seen a horse, but that was the old days. That was years ago.
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah,
and it's still the case.
So, how different is it? You talk about the Victorian racing and so forth. You spent time, was it about 8 or 9 years ago in Singapore?
I've been Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Mauritius. I've been to all them places, and it's a totally different experience for a jockey because everyone goes there to punt. They don't go there to have a good time. They go there to have a bet, and they're crazy passionate about it, which is good. I quite enjoyed, but as Australia, like you said, you can go to the races and have the best time and not even see a horse, So it's. I must admit, once I retire, I'll be looking forward to having a day out at the races at some stage and enjoying it instead of being. Public holidays where they're being the entertainment for everybody. So it's it'll be really strange.
Rick was talking about, we were talking about the fitness element before of what you've done, the taekwondo, the running, the triathlons and so forth. I just want to touch a little bit on Ninja Warrior because I did watch your Ninja Warrior. And if you haven't seen Stephen Baster on Ninja Warrior, just Google that. What the hell happened?
What happened there? Look, I think this is a chance for you to just really have the microphone, come clean, let us know.
Just tell us.
We're into honesty here. This is like 360, full frontal feedback. Go.
So I was at the races one day, and I think I was in race 1 and 8, and I'm sitting in the car on Facebook as you do, and it came up that applications are open for next year at Ninja Warrior, and my Taekwondo background, Ninja, Taekwondo.
We're joining those dots.
Yep. Even though it was 20 years ago, but anyway, probably left it a little bit late in life. But look, I sent it to a few of the boys. What do you reckon? And of course, they were all for it because I'm the one that's going to make an idiot of myself. So I applied and had to go through a bit of a strenuous application. They take you to a CrossFit gym and you compete against other people and. It was quite tough, but anyway, made it, got in, probably being a jockey helped. And anyway, so I got there I had to go to town at 9:30 in the morning. They did interviews all day and then went over to Williamstown about 4:30 in the afternoon. They showed us the obstacle course once. We sat where the audience did. Then we went and sat in a tent, and I was on at 12:30 at night, so you didn't get to see anybody before you. When you get out there, you get to see the people before you go. So there was this boxing guy that was fit as 10 men that went before me. He fell off at the first obstacle. My nerves were shot, and I'm just thinking, this is not good.
You did take that a bit slow, that first obstacle, I noticed.
Well, my wife just wanted to see me fall in the water. So if I went into the first, she's laughing. So all I wanted to do was get over the first, which I did.
You were so happy because you actually put the arms up as well. It's like, mate, you haven't finished yet.
Sorry,
there's another 9 obstacles.
The gates have opened. You've jumped. That's all. You're in the race, but you haven't won anything yet.
Well, I didn't make it through to the semis because of that, because I went too bloody slow. But look,
because you were having too much good time.
I just wanted to get over each obstacle, and every one I made it, I was just wrapped. So
tortoise in the hair. It's, as long as you get through the course, that's all that matters, isn't it? But,
but I didn't. I ended up in the water. So,
so was I watching the semi, or was that your only?
No, I didn't make it to the semis because I was too slow.
I just thought I must have missed that.
It's a Showcase 78 grade. Never quite made it to the listed section, but hey, it was going pretty well.
Oh, good on you for having a go.
Absolutely, and I think it just speaks to the volumes of this man's sort of personality and his profile. He's not going to let what he can't do stop him. He's going to have a go and see what he can do in that instance, which is important. When we interviewed Willow, he was a passionate student. He would study, vision. He would look at the horse he's riding. He'd look at the race, who's accepted, who the jockeys are. He'd realise that jockey likes to put their horses forward into the race. So if he can sort of restrict that opportunity, he was a massive. I reckon his planning would be in the tens of hours to run, jump, and go for maybe what could be a minute. 90 seconds or even 55 challenge if it's that sort of race. He's a track walker. He's all those things. What's your sort of take on all that stuff? Do you prepare as much as him, or is he a professor and you're kind of just a happy student? Where would you say you are in that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good analogy. Actually, he's next level. Willow. He's all about the sport. He loves it, and every minute of his day is consumed by racing. And I enjoy life, and I think I've been quite lucky with how far I've got. I do my homework. I do my homework. I don't turn up without doing my homework.
So how long would that take you? So you got...
It depends on the race, and depends on the horse, whether I know the horse, don't know the horse.
Exposed form, not exposed form, a maiden, so you got nothing really to go research
Yeah,
there.
Well, you can now. We can look up. The information out there is crazy now, so we can look everything up. You can look up their jump outs, you can look up past wins, whether they're good at that track, and then you can go from there to studying everybody else's horse in the race, which Willow does. And
we know.
He comes and tells you how your horse is going to go before you go. But end of the day, they're horses, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. So you can do as much homework as you like.
But on average, how long would you spend in your week?
On average, I'm probably half an hour each race.
Okay.
Half an hour each race on average.
Okay, that's pretty fair. And do you walk tracks?
No, I'm not a track walker. So because I get it wrong. Every time I go out there and have a look and I go, the fence is off, I'll sit 3 wide on this one. Fence is on all day.
Yeah.
So I just haven't. I've never really been good at that. That's one thing I'm flawed at. So I tend to ask other people. Obviously, after the first race, second race, third race, you get a better idea anyway. So,
do you think they're giving you the real intel, or is it? You guys are pretty good at helping each other out.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Okay. So, which leads me to my next question. Of all of the jockeys that you've raced with, against, and Australia globally, who do you think is the best in your opinion, and what makes them the best? Don't say Willow.
Okay, so fast horses make good jockeys.
Yep.
However, there is a lot of good jockeys out there. I think there's the top 10%. I wouldn't even say that. I'd say there's the top 5% that are blokes that are just, you can, I guess it's a feel from another jockey that you ride against. It's obviously the Hugh Bowmans, the Willows, the Ollies. I'm going to miss people here because there's so many of them. Damien Lanes, Joe Moreira's. You see these guys and they just have it. They're just,
And what is that? If you had to define
it's it's a skill. It's a skill that you can't be taught, and you either have it or you don't. And they've got that. It's the split-second decision-making, but it's not even that. It's they're relaxed on the horse, the confidence, and it can come and go. You can see people that have it, and you can see they lose it because they lose confidence. They might have ridden a lot of crap horses for a while, and a horse can take away your confidence because it's got control of you. It can take away your confidence very quickly, or you can have a fall in a race and your confidence goes. But the guys that are the stars, they have that spunk about them. You know, they've got something that's next level.
And they're clear thinking by the sounds of it. Like they don't double think themselves. They back themselves in and they go. I saw that with Mark Zara recently. He's just in ripping form, and it's almost like you just see him. He's picked what he wants to do, and he's just going to execute it. And he's jumped on some horses that are very good. We get that, but he's also got some horses. He's almost physically picked them up and thrown them over the line. He's amazing at that. But when I spoke to him, he said, "Yeah, it's not my life. You know, he loves taking holidays. He just says, I like playing in the big games. Like he wants to be a postseason player, which is hard for you to understand, Pete, because you barrack for North Melbourne. But he just wants to play fine, doesn't he? He wants to be in the big races, and then when the weather's turned ordinary, he wants to go to the northern hemisphere and get some sun.
Yeah, but that's probably similar to real estate. Winter's a bit quiet, so everyone goes on holidays, and Zara's the same. He likes being there because the money in the other times is when the big money is, and it's quiet in winter, so that's when they tend to take their holidays. I don't know if I mentioned Zara and them jockeys earlier, but he's definitely one of those. He's definitely one of the stars. Yep. So yeah, I think clear thinking. They don't get rattled. That is definitely another thing that they're tough under pressure. They make the decision and they stick by it. It's confidence.
They're on pretty good terms with themselves, aren't they? Like they don't let other people's opinions dictate what they do.
No, but they get rattled. They get rattled. You can see, especially when they're wasting, they can get rattled pretty easy. So, but in the race, they're game on.
Can we talk about it? We're entering Melbourne Cup, and let's focus on the Melbourne Cup. It's the the ultimate, isn't it? It's the biggest race. It's a race that stops the nation. It's it's amazing to think of a horse race that literally does stop the nation wherever you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't even have to be in Australia, does it now?
And despite our Sydney friends telling us it's all about the Everest, like welcome to thank you. 150 years of history tells us that maybe.
I don't think there'd be too many people in the world that would know about it. But so from a jockey's point of view, apart from the obvious of millions and millions of people watching it, talk to us about the Melbourne Cup. What makes it so special?
I think pretty much everything you just said then. It's history. It's I remember being in my family having nothing to do with racing, but in Queensland when I was in probably year 4, we used to stop class, get a TV, watch the race. My mum probably had a trifecta or something for me. I don't know if that's a good culture to be bringing up, but it was just exciting. You know, it was exciting, and it's just an amazing race, and it's definitely the race that I wish I'd won. It's everybody wants to win it. You know, it is the race. It's the holy grail,
and it's tough from a jockey's perspective. The 3,200 metres. Is it just grueling? Is it tough? Is it a lot of jostling, or what goes on? What goes on in a race? Give us the insider.
Tighten your seatbelt before the gates open because the boys aren't going to give an inch. It's every man for himself, and obviously you've got to try and keep your horse relaxed because it's a 3,200 metre race. So it's a fine line between jostling for position and keeping your horse relaxed, because if you give it a little dig to hold the position and it gets keen, your race is over. So it's a real fine line, but it's definitely the race. You know, it's great to watch, and you don't see jockeys come out of the jockeys room and climb the tower to watch many races. Whereas the Melbourne Cup, I promise you, there's not many left in the jockeys room. They're all out there watching it.
And what's your feeling that it's become more of an international thing now, as opposed to, once upon a time you'd sort of see a New Zealand bred, Australian bred horse. Yeah, you could find something through a staying bloodline like Zabeel or something like that and go, oh, that's a cup chance. Now they're going to Ireland to get them. They're going global. What's your views on that?
I can see the argument for people that are betting on the race to say, it's hard to follow the form lines or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're gambling.
Yep.
I'm all for competition. I love it. I think the better horses they bring over, the better jockeys, I love the competition because we're just as good as them. We've got some great horses here and great riders, and if you don't compete against the best, how are you going to know?
Love it. Great attitude.
And Pete and I are very much into giving back to the next generation coming through. So whenever someone talks to us about real estate and they've just started, can you spend a coffee chat with me or something like that? We'll do it all the time because we love it. The apprentice school in Victoria, and I've had the great fortune of sort of, through Maddie and Des and Willow, these kids that are coming through, like they're coming through and they're winning Group 1s. You did it, you said, by just luck. I don't know if that's quite true, but you did it, because the horse maybe took you there. Some of these kids, like when Geordie Childs, Jai McNeil, they've ridden horses that I've been involved with, and they are so articulate. They are very clear on what they're trying to do in the mounting up before the race. I'll tell you what their plan is. I'll come back and tell you how they executed it. They are incredibly talented. There's no doubt about that, the skill you talked about earlier. Do you think they're better prepared than your generation? And as that goes forward, do you see that continuing to sort of improve?
Geordie Childs and Jai McNeil are both champion young men, to mention them first. Are they better than my generation when we were coming through apprentice school? They're 250% better than we were when we came through apprentice school, because our apprentice school was at Caulfield, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We had 1 hour where Mrs. King, one of the trainer's wives, would give us a cup of tea and some biscuits, and would act like idiots for the hour. Whereas now they've got a proper program in place. They've got everything. They've got dietitians, psychs, people helping them, people like you helping them with their planning, and they're just so much better prepared. When they've got the mechanical horses, I used to have a chaff bag.
Which you and I are going to ride later for the camera.
That's right. So they come out of the apprentice school now. It's a massive advantage for them, because they come out and the horses get handicapped. So the best horse obviously carries 59 kilos, but because you're an apprentice, you can claim that 3 kilos off their back. So owners and trainers want to put them on to get that advantage, and they're every bit as good as the senior jockey now when they're probably a year in. So they've got an amazing advantage, and again, well done to Racing Victoria. They've just got that apprentice school going a treat, and the guys there that look after the kids have done an amazing job.
And speaking of kids, if either of yours wanted to sort of pursue the
Izzy and Penny,
it would that be something you'd be sort of encouraging, discouraging? What would you do?
So Izzy, we put her on one when she was about 3, and it jumped forward and she fell off the back of it, and now she's terrified of horses. So I don't think she'll be going near it in a hurry.
Okay, so there's a commentator or something like that. But not
Penny is absolutely fearless and will do anything, so it wouldn't surprise me. I'm against it because I was flat out watching Melissa ride in races. It just gets me nervous watching, because I've seen the injuries and the deaths and things. And I think you can be happy in life without risking your life every day. And I wouldn't like my girls to do it. I'd be cringing. But if they want to do it, I'm not. It's their life.
Absolutely. And you sort of, as you said at the start of this, you're closer to the end than you were to the beginning. Post racing, do you think there's a good program in play for jocks that have retired? That there is something there for them to, whether it be to get into the media, because the media is bigger than it's ever been with racing now. With obviously racing.com and those sort of opportunities. Or do you think you're prepared well for life after racing?
Yes and no. I think we have had a career transition program that we've had a couple of people help us with, and being a jockey is so different to anything else that the boys find it hard to, you can point them in the right direction, but you don't know when you've got a day off, because your rides come and go each week, and so it's really hard to plan things, to do courses and look forward to things and plan properly. So it is a hard one to plan the next career. Obviously, I've been planning it for quite a while, waiting for the next step. And obviously I'm planning on speaking to you guys. I'm planning on going into real estate. But the other guys, they do find it tough. But we have got a good program in place, and we have got people there to help them make the next step. So I'm hoping that it's slowly getting better, but it is a really tough one for the people that are 25 to 35 now. It's hard for them, because a lot of them left school early. Whereas now the kids are staying till they're 18, finishing school, and then becoming a jockey. So it might be easier for them to transition.
And that's really what Des O'Keefe and Matty Hyland told me, Pete, that they've had to go front end or back end. So they thought they'll start at the front end first, get them prepared properly so that as they're coming through, they'll have a better exit strategy for them. But they really need to improve the entry level, which they've done, as you said in your own words, that they've done that incredibly well. So it's just interesting because, racing is something I'm interested in because my wife's passionate about it. Growing up, I didn't really care too much about it other than the Melbourne Cup. It was a long weekend, so you love that. And you'd be in a cup sweep and you get some interest there. And it seems to be top of mind around about end of August, end of November, and then you don't think about it again for the rest of the year. But these guys, there's a race meeting every day bar Christmas Day, isn't there? Like it's a 360.
Steve, you won the Sale Cup last week, didn't you? Well done.
Well done.
That was good because
Willow was chasing you, he couldn't get you.
Yeah, which is good. I always like beating Willow because I know he takes it to heart. He takes it to heart.
He did the old wave as you salute.
Yeah, so it was actually Mark Riley. He's got a bit to do with that horse, and I was apprenticed to him, and the guy that actually trains it, Logan McGill, he was apprenticed to Mark as well. So obviously, being my last year of riding, it was great to ride a winner for them guys.
Full circle, isn't it? And that's the Sale Cup, $200,000 race. We're not talking anything shabby there. That was an amazing sort of meeting. All the big jockeys were there too, so it wasn't like it was a provincial sort of find some guy who's doing track work, come and ride this one in the first. These were pretty good jockeys, weren't they?
Yeah, it's a pretty serious meeting up there now. Like you said, it's 200,000, and a couple of the horses were entered at Moonee Valley on the Friday night in big races as well, and they chose the Sale Cup over it. It ended up being a pretty strong race, but obviously very good prize money. So
isn't it great for country Victorian racing? It's so
Absolutely.
good. We used to always go to the Bendigo Cup. It was just a ripping. Did
you see
couple
any
of
those
days.
races?
No, I did not.
No,
Rick.
okay.
No, I did not.
Just trying to get a feel. I'm just thinking, are you a city player? Are you clearly what I'm hearing there is it doesn't really matter where you are, what track, as long as there's beer and socialising to do, you'll be doing it.
Look, I can't lie. That has been very, very high on the agenda. But
for our listeners and viewers, Peter is a member of the VRC, so I just want that. I want that official.
You will see me out there
at the birdcage,
no
but you won't see him anywhere looking at a track. Is what I'm hearing.
Got to go a little bit easy though, because I've got the block auction next Saturday, Emirates Day. So I've got to be a little bit careful of that. But let's start to wrap now, and as we do, I really encourage our listeners to watch YouTube for the simple reason that I don't think I've seen any of our guests smile much as this guy. And
that's why you can't be an undertaker post racing. You just could not be a funeral director.
But Stephen, I mean, we only met very recently. And I've got to say, you're just a great guy to be around and talk to, and the attitude is incredible.
Absolutely.
We're talking about a guy who started racing at 15, who's now 44. Looking at, I don't know exactly how long it is to go yet, Steve, but I know real estate is on the cards for you post racing.
It's only about 3 weeks, mate.
Is that right?
Hello.
Is that what?
We're breaking news here.
Breaking news.
Richo, racing.com. where all the big stories come. And hang on, broadcast. Wow. Sorry. Right, late scratching. No, you're going to...
Well, that's exciting, mate. I didn't realise it was that soon, but wow. So it's only about 3 weeks.
Yeah, well... Thanks for the kind words, but obviously I came looking for you guys. You didn't come looking for me. I appreciate your help, and obviously real estate's going to be my next career. And but yeah, I've racing. I love it. So it's always going to be my blood, and I'll always still be around racing. So
well, Rick's pretty happy because he'll no longer be the smallest guy in real estate.
That's right. Which I've actually honoured that role for a long period of time, almost 3 decades, Pete. But. Thank you. That's payback for the North Melbourne quote, isn't it, post-season?
Oh, there's plenty more.
Yeah, okay, I'll get it. No, it's okay. I'm actually thrilled I can fit into these silks just quietly.
What are you talking about? It's actually big on you.
Bit of wind resistance. Not aerotone.
We do wear a safety vest underneath.
Thank you.
Oh, don't ruin a good story.
That's exactly what we want to hear. But in wrapping up, mate, thank you so much for this is a very busy time for you. We want to see the power of this show that, let's get Stevie Baster into the Melbourne Cup. It'll be his last chance, his last ride. We'll take an outsider, take a 201 shot. Tell you what, he'll be going past the winning post first, second or last with a big smile on his face that you can't ask for any much more than that.
Would he wear the red and white Voices of Value silks?
Have we got the red and white horses?
We need those.
We need
Put it
those.
down.
Yeah, we'll jot that down as something that
that
we can
down
do
about next
going
production
forward.
meeting.
But in terms of what we've shared today, clearly what we're hoping you're getting out of this is attitude is everything. Perspective is right in this guy's wheelhouse. He's very lucky, he says, and he's very fortunate. And so because he starts off every day with the gratitude for what he's got, it's very easy for him to execute what he does on a racetrack, whether that be in a big race like we've got over this weekend. This is live now on Derby Day, one of the big days in Australian racing, if not one of the best days globally for racing. But Stevie Baster is somebody who I couldn't find anyone who didn't like him, and I tried. I asked for some dirt from Willow, I asked for some dirt from Des and Matt, and no one could give me any dirt. All I could say, Pete, was the exact same thing we've experienced here. Hopefully what our listening audience has heard and what our YouTube visual people are seeing as well, which is this is a guy who is passionate about life, is committed to being the best he can be while he's in it. It doesn't dictate everything else he does in his life. Racing isn't his life, it just is part of his lifestyle. It's in his blood, he loves it, but not more so than his 3 girls and not more so than what he wants to do post racing. So it's been refreshing to hear that sort of attitude from an elite operative.
Absolutely. He's been the ultimate professional in his career that spanned 30-odd years. And now we wish you all the very best of luck, because we will absolutely be there to support the transition into real estate. It brings a real smile to my face that the industry is gaining someone like yourself. And from the conversations that we've had already, it's going to be a real treat that vendors and buyers alike are going to get to deal with someone with the professionalism and attitude like yourself, Stevie. So wish you all the very best in that. And thanks for sharing some amazing stories and giving our listeners some great insights into a demanding sort of field, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's a great sport. It's a sport that gives so many people so much joy and happiness, and it's been an outstanding, sterling career, and we congratulate you for that.
Absolutely. And can I say racing's loss is real estate's gain from what I've just heard there.
Thanks very much, guys. We really appreciate you having me on.
We trust you enjoyed listening to Voices of Value, a shared conversation between Rick Rushton, Peter Kakos, and their valued guests. Their views are not necessarily those of the wider world, but they should be. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your preferred podcast source, and we love to hear both your feedback and ratings on the content we provide. Additional information can be sourced through our website, voicesofvaluepodcast.com. Join the conversation again next week when Peter and Rick continue the search for truth, justice, and the value-added way.